Hello, and welcome to this special Christmas episode of Anime Audio Commentary. Today, I'll be commenting on Episode 2 of Itsudatte My Santa. If you'd like to watch along, then start watching now. So last we left off, Santa, mainly thanks to Mai's intervention, ended up having a far better Christmas than he's likely ever had. You know, he really gained some perspective about his life, about how he's sort of treated by others who, were ultimately sort of celebrating his birthday, albeit without him. And he sort of gained some more perspective on his parents as well, and why things are the way they are. So everything seemed primed to be wrapped up nicely and all that, but then it turns out Mai used up a little too much magic, and now she's sort of stranded down here in the south for the rest of the year. So the question is, what now? Santa essentially has a new roommate he's going to have to contend with. And, someone whose whole sort of vocation and training revolves around Christmas and wintertime, I feel like Mai's going to have to do some serious adjusting. Although that said, she seems to be adapting to the beach very well. Okay, so yeah, once again, we must understand that this is written by Ken Akamatsu, who, given Love Hina is the way it is, I suppose this isn't very surprising that Mai would just sort of immediately slap Santa for a misunderstanding. I do find it interesting that the police are patrolling the beach. I feel like this is deliberately meant to mirror the first episode, because this is kind of exactly what happened before, but now in a different time of year. So all the shenanigans have been interrupted by Mai's little sister, who offers a sort of ominous warning that someone's on their way here. I feel like the implication is that Mai's little sister probably shouldn't be here right now. But, the person who has shown up, she seems to be looking for Mai and her little sister. I do find it interesting that for someone who's just sort of shown up at the beach, she's already sort of prepared for the whole thing with a bikini. I guess if she sort of knew in advance she'd be heading for the beach, then she might have prepared, but I don't know. It seems like she's traveled here more to chastise Mai than anything. Oh dear. So we're learning all sorts of things, people of Mai's vocation, they're not supposed to sort of share territory, I suppose. And given that there are multiple people in the same area, someone's gonna have to leave, and I guess Mai's gonna be the one to do it, which introduces a few complications, because, Santa's made a friend here, and, saying goodbye to friends kind of mirrors the topic of this little opening monologue at the start of the OVA, but I don't know, that doesn't bode well for things. But the interesting thing is that, people are assigned territories. Mai seemingly have been assigned here, but now this new girl claims she was assigned. Unfortunately, I feel like the only way to really resolve things is to head north and discuss this with the powers that be. Alright, well never mind, I guess there's a different solution. They're going to have to compete in some way in order to relinquish one's hold on the claim. Now it is telling that the challenger here is making this a contest of magic, which is something that Mai doesn't really seem to have a whole lot of. She seems to be able to conjure things, but I was given to understand that she had sort of run out of power, hence why she had to stay. Granted, we have sort of fast-forwarded 6 months ahead, so I imagine some of it's come back over time, but that said, I don't know. I feel like this is a bit of a waste of power. Like, I reckon she doesn't want to leave and all that, but maybe there are better competitions or things to compete against in order to figure things out. Alright, so here we have a bit of a problem, I guess. Mai is unwilling to relent no matter what. And I get the feeling that it's gonna sort of cause a problem, Because, I get it, she wants to stay. I understand that Santa would want to have her stay as well. However, at some point you just kind of have to bend to the inevitable if that's how things are gonna be. Although I suppose maybe you don't have to give up right just yet, seeing as how Sherry has managed to trap herself inadvertently. If you just sort of say oh, I'm so sad here in this cage, you should let me out and all that. That's not real great incentive to do so. So that's something. Mai's little sister, she seems to be sort of in charge here in the sense that, she dictates, hey, let's go eat, and everyone just sort of does. And I guess, she opens a few more questions than really anyone else. Why is she here? How did she get here? And, it's one thing if Mai leaves the North Pole or what have you, because she's at least somewhat competent on her own. I feel like Mai's little sister doesn't have any such competency, and therefore, maybe there should be a little bit more concern from the powers that be that a child has gone missing. Especially because it's, the middle of the summer. Because, someone who is ostensibly training to be Santa Claus really has no business messing around in the summer somewhere where it's hot when you should be training. You don't have leave to go off wherever you want, necessarily. Ooh. So there's a little bit more here. Sherry is of the opinion that Mai has been wasting time, cavorting around, and in a sense, Sherry does have a point here. She's not training or doing anything that would further her career or her vocation. But on the other hand, Mai is also, supposedly helping Santa, trying to make his life better. In my mind, it seems a bit self-serving of her to do so, because, she did help the guy out on Christmas, and yeah, she did kind of have to, stick around for a little while, but I get the distinct impression that, she's not necessarily overstaying her welcome here, but, there are other responsibilities she needs to attend to that she's just sort of willfully ignoring. Oh dear, so I guess we're sort of retreading this again. These delinquents, they've got a real bad habit of walking into people and dropping things, And, I get the idea is that, if you drop a cake, that's it, really. But if you drop a watermelon and it busts open, you were gonna crack it open with a stick anyways, so you can still really just enjoy the watermelon anyways. Oh boy. Well, I guess when Sherry does that, making a gigantic watermelon, there's really no room to complain because now you have well, magnitudes more than you had before. And, sure, it's broken and all that, but, I don't know, man. I feel like you just have to play the cards you're dealt. And all things considered, a whole lot of watermelon's better than very little watermelon. Oh dear. So Mai has recognized another person here. None other than Miss Noel, presumably a teacher, who has informed her that, yeah, she's gonna have to go back. So it seems like, it's kind of inevitable. Oh, wow. Everyone's being surprisingly lenient. They're saying, look, you are going to have to leave, but you don't have to leave until midnight on Christmas Eve. So, that gives Mai, 6 months. Now, I get the inevitability of leaving is sad and all that, but Mai saying, I have to leave sooner than I expected, 6 months is a lot of time, it is and it isn't. It's not much compared to a lifetime, but it's not nothing. It's not like you have 3 days here to leave. So, I feel like rather than wallowing in sadness, perhaps the best thing Mai could do is make the best of things. Because, yes, she does have to leave, but what that really means is she just can't keep living here. There's no reason why she couldn't visit, I suppose. She certainly could visit during Christmas time, right? Oh dear. So, rather than really addressing the big questions of whether or not she has to leave right now, everyone's just sort of playing beach volleyball. Which, I get it. When you're on the beach, you do beach activities, and volleyball's a fun game. However, everything's just sort of devolving into Santa being smacked around a bit. Which, it's kind of standard fare, but, maybe the poor guy doesn't deserve it. Oh dear. So now Sherry is sort of working on Mai's side to try and set her up a bit so that she can say goodbye. And unfortunately this involves with wrangling Mai's little sister, who is, I guess, a hellion to put it nicely. Of course, the real problem here, in a way, is Mai. She's not taking any advantage of the work Sherry's putting in to help her. And unfortunately, it's probably only going to make things worse in the long run, because, we've drifted through summer, we saw, the end of summer festival, it's now autumn with the leaves falling and all that, it's starting to get cold, and nevertheless, Santa and Mai are enjoying their time together, but it seems as though Santa himself is unaware that the end is imminent. And just like that, it's already December. Time has flown by, meaning there's only 3.5 weeks left. I mean, Sherry's acting like there's still no time to say a proper goodbye, but I feel like, even with 3 weeks, you have time, It's not good, it's not gonna be easy. It would have been better if you started the process 6 months ago, but it's kind of like that saying. The best time to do something was 20 years ago, the second best time is right now. So at least Sherry is trying to do something, while Mai presumably is just kind of sulking about it. Wow, Sherry's putting in actual work, calling in reservations and things like that, so that, they have something nice to do. Now, I guess the question is, how nice is it going to be? Because I feel like things have still yet to sort of hit the fan a little bit. I mean, Santa's saying, this is the first Christmas where I'm going to be celebrating my birthday with friends and all that. I feel like, Mai's going to have to leave, and therefore it will be, at best, bittersweet. I mean, I guess his birthday is the 24th rather than the 25th, so he can still spend his birthday with Mai, but I don't know. Sherry has at least, gone to the effort of, setting up, a good last day. But I don't know. I feel like events will still conspire against them. Oh dear. So now Sherry's just sort of stuck in the unenviable position of explaining everything to Mai's little sister. And I feel like this explanation is kind of lost on a child. But Sherry has sort of made the unfortunate statement of, we don't know when Mai will be allowed to leave again, just in time for Mai to hear it. So this kind of throws a wrench into everything. It makes it seem like this truly could be goodbye forever. Now, unfortunately, Mai is taking the wrong approach here. She's sort of like, it's over, it's already too late, despite everything Sherry's done. And I don't know, it's probably not going to go entirely as how Sherry's planned it, but I feel like the best thing that can be done is to just do it, I mean, I feel like even if Mai is never really allowed to leave again, there's no reason why she couldn't just, do something about it, if she's already sort of come here against the rules and is breaking the rules, why can't she just break the rules again? And, presumably she's also going to be delivering presents on Christmas at some point, right? Couldn't she make a little itty-bitty detour? Surely this would be incentive to, get your route done early and, make time for an extra special visit, Not to be, overly optimistic about things, but, this really doesn't have to be the end, Despite how the episode started, Sherry's really just sort of doing her best to try and, knock some sense into Mai here, saying, look, you should not give up. You should do the best you can right now while you have the opportunity, because opportunities will be hard to come by later on. And, there really is a large degree of truth to that. Oh, that's very interesting. I guess the reason Sherry feels so strongly on this topic is because Mai sort of taught her this lesson a while ago. And I suppose it's unfortunate that Mai's now struggling with this, but I guess it's kind of different. So, maybe Sherry isn't going to have to, physically force her to do it. Hopefully this pep talk is enough, but, it really is one of those times where you just have to, do something or regret it forever. Alright, so we're really sort of burning through the plot beats here. I guess it's really just kind of to be expected when you're dealing with an OVA here. Especially seeing as how they're trying to cram so much into one episode, but I don't know. I feel like something like this could probably benefit from a longer adaptation, even if there isn't really, a whole lot of material to support it. Oh dear. So Santa's alone, and just as he's sort of starting to worry about everything, Mai shows up. So, he's not alone, it's all good, but, he's about to release some bad news. Now, I guess Mai really just laid out the whole thing. Probably in a slightly less tactful way than would be most beneficial, but, hopefully Santa has the right attitude here. Alright. he's taking it well. It's like, look, I'm still going to be here and I will wait for you. So that's probably all you can really ask for, So I guess the only thing at this point is just to make the most of what time you have left. I mean, Santa is even of the opinion that, like, look, what's to stop us from meeting up again next Christmas, And I suppose he is right. Alright. Oh, wow. Wow, okay. So, unfortunately, it is suddenly, 3 minutes to midnight. And, there's not exactly enough time to, go on a whole date when you have to leave in 3 minutes. I do find it interesting that Sherry is now roping in Mai's younger sister to try and do things, which, it's probably for the best, seeing as how the sister is getting in the way a lot. Time to pull your weight here, kid. Wow. That's something, to use their magic to essentially freeze time to give them the opportunity to enjoy themselves. That's probably a hefty sacrifice and probably in violation of some rules if I had to guess, Messing with time and causality and all that, you probably shouldn't do it. But, it's a noble sacrifice, it's a noble gesture, it's for a friend and for Santa and for love, so, I feel like the powers that be could kinda look the other way. Although there is a bit of a damper on things, because, like, if time's frozen, like, how's the waiter gonna get you your food at that date? It's probably not something we should really be worrying about. We should probably focus more on the gesture. And, they do seem to be enjoying themselves throughout this little montage. Alright, so even at the very end, Santa has the right approach to this. Let's not say goodbye. I don't know what word they would exactly use instead, but, goodbye is too final, so we'll say see you later or something like that. Alright, at least Mai has sort of started to internalize the idea that this is not forever. That, yeah, they do have to part for now, but it's not the end of everything. Although, unfortunately, Mai's sort of jumped the gun here. I feel like they could have shared a kiss or something, but she's decided, yeah, well, time to go. Kind of a missed opportunity, but I feel like it was more kind of cowardice on her part. I mean, I get it, it's kind of like a nerve-wracking thing to do given everything. Although, everything's not really that bad, because at least Mai can sort of entrust Sherry to watch over Santa and make sure everything's going okay. That's, I guess that's not really like a luxury I assumed she would have to rely on. Yeah, so that's it then. All they have to wait is 1 year, which, it's a long time, but it's also not forever. I feel like things ultimately sort of worked out for the best in a really weird sort of way, because if for no other reason than seeing Mai again, Santa certainly has something to look forward to on his birthday, which, he certainly feels better about it now than he did at the beginning, but now there's something extra to worry about. Or not worry about, but rather look forward to. And, that's a darn sight more than he had initially. Like, the change from hating his birthday to now looking forward to it eagerly, that's pretty substantial. Because, like, I feel like once you get to a certain age, you don't really look forward to your birthday anymore. It's just something that kind of happens. And it's not necessarily that Santa's old enough to really no longer care about his birthday, but now he has a reason to care about it, even when he no longer would. Oh dear. Okay. So, unfortunately, Sherry has screwed up here. You know, people were not worried about Mai going AWOL, they were worried about Mai's little sister. So everything was just sort of, a big misunderstanding in the end. So, I guess life is pretty good for Santa. He's got, a new roommate in perpetuity, I guess. So, you know, when you get down to it, this is perhaps the best Christmas gift of all that he could receive, you know? Alright, well that's it for this episode. If you've enjoyed it, then by all means, tune in for the next one. Merry Christmas, Space Cowboy.